do you know your period? Is it normal? Is it heavy, or too painful? Well, stay tuned and I'm gonna teach you all about that. I'm Dr. Renita White, a board certified OBGYN and women's health expert, and I'm here to talk to you today about your cycle. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Renita White, a board certified OBGYN and women's health expert. This channel is all about you, helping to educate you when it comes to your body and your health, helping you to feel empowered so that you can best advocate for yourself whenever it comes to anything that's about you. So if you are interested in any educational information when it comes to women's health, body health, fibroids, pain with cycles, what's considered normal and what's not, this is the place for you. Subscribe so you can stay tuned every week to hear something new regarding education about your body. And if there's something that you want to hear in particular, leave a comment down below so I can talk about it on the next one. So let's get into it. What is considered a normal cycle? Well, first, it's important to know what is the menstrual cycle. It's more than just bleeding. So the entire cycle includes the first day of your bleeding all the way until the first day of the next cycle. So when you start to think about it, think day 1 is the first day of bleeding. Even if you have a 5-day cycle, keep counting beyond that. So day 6, day 7, on and on. For those who have a 28-day cycle, that means that they had 28 days since the first day of their last period, but on day 29, that's actually the first day of the next bleed. So think of your cycle in that context. There are 4 components of the menstrual cycle. The first is menstruation. The second is the follicular phase. Third is ovulation. And fourth is the luteal phase. So let's get into it. Menstrual cycle bleeding is the first part of your menstrual cycle. So this is when you're actually shedding blood from the lining of the uterus. This usually should last less than 7 days. For some, it could last 2 days and be super light. For some, it may last a full 7 days with being heavy the first 2 or 3. This can vary for every woman, and it also can vary each month, but only should be off by a little bit. So maybe some days it's a 5-day cycle, some days it's a 4-day cycle, but it really shouldn't be where it's lasting beyond 7 days, and it really shouldn't be such that you only have 1-day cycles here and 7-day cycles there. The way your body knows to have a menstrual bleed is because of communication with what the hormones are doing from the levels of the brain and the ovary. So the whole reason your body knows to have a period is because it got the signal that you're not pregnant. That's based on dropping levels of 2 hormones, progesterone and estrogen. Those hormones play a big role in maintaining a pregnancy, but once your body realizes that sperm and egg never met, the egg was not fertilized, those levels drop. It drops down enough that your body says, okay, time to let go of this lining, and the lining of the uterus starts to come down. Now let's talk about the follicular phase of your cycle. Period is ended or is trailing off at this point, and your body's job is to try to get you to ovulate an egg in order to get pregnant. We're born with all the eggs we'll ever have when we're born, and once you start having a period, each month your body sends out a little recruit of eggs that are going to compete to see which one ovulates. The way this is done is based on 2 key players, FSH, called follicle stimulating hormone, and estrogen. So period's over, it's trailing off, your brain sends a signal to say, hey, let me send out this FSH, because it's going to help these follicles, which is the little sac of fluid where the eggs live, it's going to help them to get bigger. So the hormone sent out, the body starts making these follicle sacs bigger and bigger, and as they get bigger, they're making more estrogen. But these follicles are competing. So eventually one is gonna outgrow the others. And it starts to make so much estrogen that it sends a signal back to the brain to say, hey, we don't need that FSH anymore. And that gets turned down. This causes all the other follicles to die off, and that one that got recruited and basically won the battle, it becomes the egg that's gonna be ovulated. So while it's spitting out all this estrogen, that helps prepare the lining to get thick. So this is preparing you for either a pregnancy or what will be your period. So this follicle gets bigger and bigger. Estrogen keeps getting more and more to make that lining thick until the next stage of your cycle comes, ovulation. So ovulation is that time where your body sends that egg out of the follicle into your abdomen so that it can be caught by the fallopian tube, the sperm can meet it, and it gets fertilized. In order for this to happen, you need a spike of something called LH, luteal hormone. This hormone comes from the brain, and it's the thing that tells the body, hey, we need to ovulate. So those estrogen levels got high enough that it triggered that spike in LH, which ultimately leads that follicle to burst open and that egg comes out. This is called ovulation. For some people, they may feel ovulation, so you might get some cramping or tenderness on one of the sides each month. We don't know why this happens. It could be because of the swelling of the ovary before that egg comes out. It could be because of some of the fluid from the follicle kind of irritating the lining of your uterus. But sometimes you can get those symptoms around ovulation. Other things that you can get around ovulation might be breast tenderness, because again, that follicle was making so much estrogen that it stimulates the breast glands. So sometimes people get that around ovulation. But in this time period, once that LH spike happens, you expect ovulation somewhere around 24 to 36 hours after that level has reached its peak. The last stage of your cycle is the luteal phase. So at this point, you've already ovulated, that egg has left the ovary, but that sac that it came from now becomes something called the corpus luteal cyst. So it's a cyst that's on the ovary that, because the egg is no longer there, it starts making a new hormone, a key player called progesterone. This progesterone is important for preparing the lining for pregnancy by continuing to make it thick and ready for a pregnancy. But also, if you don't get pregnant, eventually that progesterone level starts to drop, and that corpus luteal cyst starts to wither away, and your body starts to realize, okay, it's time to have a period. So in the luteal phase, you may notice premenstrual symptoms, because the dropping of your progesterone levels can sometimes lead to some things like bowel changes, constipation or bloating. You may again notice some breast tenderness. Sometimes people will start to get headaches because of that dropping of the progesterone levels. And all of these symptoms can be what you experience as PMS before your period comes on. So again, the 4 stages of your menstrual cycle would be menstrual bleeding, the follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. So how do you know if it's normal? First, think about regularity. We talked about tracking your cycle. First day of the bleed, all the way to the first day of the next bleed. The average menstrual cycle lasts anywhere between every 21 days to every 35 days. Now, it shouldn't be jumping from 21 days here, 35 days there, but you can have a wiggle room about every 2 to 3 day difference. So the average person who has what you would describe as a monthly cycle tends to be somewhere around 28 days. But it could be 26 to 28 days or 28 to 30 days. So just know, wherever you are on the spectrum, you should have somewhere around 2 to 3 day grace in what regular is for you. If you can pretty much count on your cycle being there sometime next month, and you can predict when that cycle is going to be, you probably have a regular cycle. So let's say that your cycle is occurring on the shorter side. Maybe you're getting it every 2 weeks, not normal for you. This is called polymenorrhea. You're getting more frequent cycles. For those who are skipping months at a time, maybe you go more than 90 days without a period. That's oligomenorrhea. And then if you haven't had a period at all, let's say you've gone 6 months, no bleeding whatsoever, that's what we describe as amenorrhea. But again, the most important thing for you to know if it's normal is if you can predict around what time it's going to come every month. Next, the length of your cycle plays an important role in knowing if it's normal. So for most people, your cycle should be less than 7 days of bleeding. It may be every 3 to 4 days long. For some, it could be always lasting 7 days. But if your bleeding is lasting 8 days or more, or this trailing on of spotting that just you never quite know when it's going to end, that may not be normal for you. So let's get into heaviness of your cycles. Now, when we think about menstrual bleeding, we think it should be somewhere around 80 milliliters of bleeding, but who's actually measuring their cycle? That's somewhere around 5.5 tablespoons of blood. But truly, the most important thing to know about heaviness is that you are able to function without needing to use an overabundance of products. So You shouldn't need to wear a diaper. You shouldn't need to wear 2 tampons or a tampon and a pad. You should be able to use whatever method of protection that you need to use, whether it be a tampon, pad, or cup, for the recommended period of time without leading to an accident. So for most cups, they should last about 12 hours. Tampons and pads, you should not be changing them more than 1 pad an hour or 2 pads every hour. If you're in this situation where you're having super heavy clots and accidents where you can't sleep through the night without having to change your sheets, your cycle is too heavy. It may be normal for you, but trust me, this may not be normal. So this is a reason I want you to talk to your doctor. Sometimes when people have these symptoms, they're having experiences such as dizziness, fatigue, feeling out of it, not even having the energy to do their normal activities. And you may think that this is your normal, but this could be a sign of anemia, where your blood count is just so low. And your blood's important for getting oxygen to vital aspects of your body. So if you have this kind of bleeding, this is called menorrhagia. This can occur due to something structural, like maybe you've got a fibroid or polyp, or something called adenomyosis. It can be due to some medications that may increase your bleeding. But whatever the reason that's causing it, this is something you're going to get checked out. Spotting. Spotting is not always normal. Now for some, you may get little spotting the day before cycle, the day after, but if you're getting this trailing on of spotting the week before your period starts or the week after, something could be wrong there. We talked about the key components of the menstrual cycle being those hormones like progesterone, FSH, LH, and estrogen communicating with the body so that you know when to bleed. But spotting could be something wrong in the communication that's leading to this random bleeding rather than a full bleed. So if you're having this happening to you, that may not be normal. Talk to your doctor. And pain. So how painful are your cycles? Cramping can be normal for some. Some have nothing, and some of us may have some mild aching, heating pads, or over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen, Midol, Tylenol should help. But if you're in a situation where you have to miss work, social activities with friends and family, or you're just stuck in bed all day, that is not normal. So if you're in this situation that every month you can count on this type of pain, or maybe it's the pain leading up to before your cycle, this is not normal. This might be due to, again, something structural like a fibroid, endometriosis, which are these abnormal lesions of the lining of the uterus that end up in the wrong place. But regardless of the reason, you're going to want to get this checked out. So what do you do if you think that your cycle is not normal? One example of this is if you missed a month or if your period was late. So I usually tell people 1 or 2 months of a weird cycle, whether it's late by a few days or heavier 1 month than normal, it can be due to a variety of things, but I want you to keep your eye on it. So track your cycles with a calendar, an online app, or whatever it is that's gonna work best for you. So you can get the sense of what the length is like, if it's regular, if it's heavy or painful or anything that's out of the norm for you. So let's say it is only 1 month that's a little bit off. It could be due to different things. Stress is a big component of it. So whether we're talking about emotional stress, the physical stress of being sick, or elevation in your stress hormones like cortisol, which could be because of recent surgery or things of that nature, those hormones could play a role in the other hormones that are important for your cycle. So 1 month that's off, we just keep an eye on it. And of course, make sure that you check a pregnancy test if you're sexually active. But if you're starting to notice that it's becoming a trend where every cycle's off, an evaluation is going to be very important. So keep an eye on some other things that may be going on. For one, have you had any lifestyle changes, like a new job that's adding additional stress? Have you started exercising a lot more or stopped your typical exercise? Any significant weight changes, like a lot of weight gain or weight loss? Any new medicines that you're taking? For example, maybe you were on the pill for a while and you just stopped. Or did you stop that depot shot? So think about all these changes because they may have an impact. Also, have you noticed any other symptoms like hair thinner, brittle nails, nipple discharge? These may seem random, but there could be other things going on like thyroid disease, underlying insulin resistance or diabetes, other things that may need to get evaluated. Walking into the door at your doctor's office with a list of symptoms that you're experiencing or what you've noticed with your cycle over the last few months is going to be really helpful to getting down to the root cause of what could be going on. When in doubt, if you're not sure, talk to your OBGYN. That is the perfect person to figure out and help you to understand what's going on with you and your body. So I hope that this is really helpful for you so you can understand what's normal and what's not. And if you think your cycle's not normal, talk to your doctor. Stay tuned for another episode where we're going to talk all about the different types of things that cause irregular periods. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for the next one.